Have you ever seen that South Park episode? He's like, all right, go ahead, drop your drawers. All right, here we go. Freeze! I'm a cop. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
It's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got the, so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance. Sure. The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. And we're back.
Hey-o.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 244, as we kept ourselves in line right there.
Yeah, that was true accountability.
When people are like, you guys know about this like a couple weeks ago, Jared and I just struggled to figure out who we talked to last week.
Well, that's something, isn't it?
It was Jake.
It's weird how you can sit here for 2 hours and there's things just blend together, you know?
Yeah. We got in late on
going on. At least you remembered your arrows.
I did.
I thought for sure you were going to
How many times? That was this third time's a charm.
Yeah, you got it on the third
I whiffed twice.
Yeah.
It was like not even registering this week. It was this week just.
I know.
Just
I told you, I drove all the way to Wexford this morning.
That's wild.
And I was like, I'm in the wrong place.
So let's make people feel better. Okay, so you drove all the way to Wexford.
It's an hour.
And
from my house.
In the wrong direction, right? Because you were going to Cannon.
I passed the main I drove twice the distance that I needed to, basically.
Yeah. And then we just got back from Minnesota. We left on the 18th. I was checking in, and I'm like, why isn't this damn thing working? I booked us for May 18th.
Boy, we have been idiots lately.
Oh, God. I want to just say that I'm just I'm just in the zone and buried but it's to the point where you get so zoned in and you're doing too many things and you start doing things not
It's
good.
Definitely possible to have too much going on.
Yeah.
It's
over multitask.
You get a little frazzled sometimes, but
so yeah.
It's that time of year too, you know, it's just like everybody seems to be coming out of, everybody fires up in March.
A little slumber.
Get some sunny days and things gears start turning again, and
just a little rusty. That's all.
Yeah, you just keep it rolling.
Yeah, that's also because
ask for grace. I
always have like one eye on the I want to be doing farm projects and hunting and everything else in my head, and I'm not. I'm in a dungeon.
And thank God for me, right? It's like, would you do anything if I didn't pull you out and say, hey, we have to
work a lot. I might make more money.
Yeah.
I would enjoy it though.
I don't think so though. I think that I think it's a necessary offset.
It is. Yeah, I'm stoked for. I don't know if it'll be last week. We'll have been in Illinois.
Yeah.
So yeah, stoked for that, to walk around and see the farm. Haven't been out there since November, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess
early November for me.
Late November, I was out there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it'll be good to get back on the farm there. Spend a day or two.
Yep. Anyways, got a guest today, Brandon McDonald.
Sir.
Coming back on. I've heard it pre-podcast.
No,
what'd you say?
We didn't figure it out, but I was crediting him for,
okay,
maybe not a direct connection, but because that was all the way back during the Nebraska thing.
Yeah.
And that's
right after that.
That's how we hooked up with Brandon initially. Was he did like a take on it, on his channel. And I reached out to him because I thought it was interesting that we talked about it. And then because of that, we got connected with Bomar. And then because of all that, a year and however much later, I killed that buck in Iowa.
So Brandon is
basically
responsible for killing that buck.
We owe Brandon for that, yeah.
He'll take a slice.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that is wild. And it has been probably damn near a year and a half at least, if not more, at this point. So, pretty wild how that all started back.
And we've been seeing a lot from Brandon recently, too, with...
FMJJ.
We're going to get into MFJJ.
MFJJ.
Motherfucking Josh Jones is how he described it. So, and and I think that's Bow Disciples and all that. So they're doing awesome stuff with all their channel, and I think Elk Shape maybe is tied into that somehow too. So be cool to dig into that. But we've been seeing a lot from Brandon and been looking for an excuse to get caught up. So
yeah, it's been a while, and there's certain people who are like, man, we enjoyed that conversation. Need to have them back on. And
I think also he's got some maybe some farm projects that we can.
Ooh.
I don't know if we'll be a help, but we can throw lots of ideas out.
Yeah, we can at least talk it out loud for a little bit. So, anyways, let's bring Brandon on. How about that?
Hey,
welcome back, man.
Jared and I are still post-Nick migration to South Carolina adjustments here of just making sure we got everything in order here. So
our producer,
you had it handled pretty well. Like I feel like there was some like, hey, I'm gonna go pee, and you handle this stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Don't miss too much.
That's called the urination coordination.
Yes, that's very much so. Yeah. Hydration is key.
I that dance in junior high. Actually, that's what they called it.
Yeah, it's teamwork.
Yeah, it'll happen again before this pod's over.
Yeah,
so
teamwork is dream work.
For that.
So, anyways, dude, thanks for coming back on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I specifically reached out because I do, in fact, have some like farm questions on how to work some stuff out. We can do it in whatever order you want to go in. But one of the big things that I wanted to ask about was who should I not be listening to as I am looking around on the internet.
All right, well, just put us on mute.
Listen, you guys are very good about having a lot of people on and then giving like appropriate pushback if you have questions or like you're very tasteful. I feel like if you have a slight disagreement or a way that you disagree with them, but there's just certain people that you've never had on. And so I feel I wonder about that.
Well, I mean,
you should ask about that then. Who specifically?
So this is the thing. I feel like if I ask specific names, you may say, no. I'll tell you what. We're
an open book, Brandon. We're not here to.
I think also
you can ask.
I think the big framework, and maybe let's put this in perspective before you lay out this is. Are you talking about your property in Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a huge point on it, right? Because there are national consultants, but understanding Tennessee and what can be done there and just how things are actually in that state is and I say that not to be rude, but like if you're coming from Iowa and you're telling me how to manage my deer and what to do in Tennessee, we're on the same book.
Ooh, see, but I want to hear more about that because I want to hear what you think is so drastically different from like Iowa. I mean, obviously there's a big just quality difference in the animals, but I want to hear even from a management suggestion, like what the subtle differences are. Well, what I'm looking for.
Truthfully, Brandon, we're going to be at a disadvantage too, because like even I would say we're more familiar with Iowa than we are with Tennessee, but even Iowa, it's like I've hunted a total of 2 hours out there. I can relate it to a lot of neighboring Midwestern states, and we know a lot of people that there's more examples, people we can talk through with that stuff. But as opposed to Tennessee,
I mean, it'd be more related to my Kentucky
established
stuff, probably as close as possible.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the biggest thing, yes, the deer aside is, it's the habitat. Your soils aren't as good as Illinois. Like, sure, there is some fertile farmland in Tennessee. I'm not denying that, but it's mostly, unless you go to the Mississippi River area, not Iowa quality. And the conditions, you guys have a longer growing season. You're not going to have a severe winter, which goes back to, we were talking about grains being very valuable when snowfall happens and stuff. You don't get a ton of that, so it's not as big of a deal.
Let Brandon.
Yeah, so that's the outline. That's the outline, I guess, is what I'm saying.
We're already getting it. We're going exactly where I was hoping to go already. Because that is an interesting thing to me. Like I watch Lee from Seek One go hit certain areas in Tennessee, and you're like, where is that?
Yeah.
Like what, and I know that there are these little anomaly areas or even just anomaly animals that they just figure out how to find. What I want to do, I've got 40 acres.
Yep.
I've got 35, and then right across the street, we just bought another 5.
Nice.
And what I want to figure out how to do is just create the best habitat on my little I realize I killed German Shepherd size whitetails down here. Like that's what we got. But I want the best damn German Shepherd whitetails I can get.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah. And so the other thing is, I just want to make sure that I'm not wasting my time doing things that I don't need to do, because I got other things that I can go do. And if it's like, yeah, just murk a bunch of does and that's the answer, and fill up the freezer, and if a buck walks in, cool, do it. Like, okay, that's fine. I get that.
So you want us to play consultant today?
Well, I mean, I want you, this is what I want. I want this to be interesting for people to listen to, from a, how do I even start figuring this out for myself in any state that they want to, because I don't want you to specifically, and I mean, I say that and I've got screenshots of my property that I've whited out all the identifying information. So
we just got 5 text messages.
Hypothetically, there's a,
so I do / don't, but overall, I just want to basically figure out like how to more good resources for people to learn, and places that you wouldn't necessarily have people go look into. And it may not even be like, just thinking in the archery space, there's a lot of information that I would qualify as good information. But it's like trying to squeeze the last 3% out of something. So like, yeah, you can learn about this stuff, but like, let's not go there. Let's work on the first 97%. And that's what I'm kind of hoping to figure out from you guys a little bit.
Well, and this is not to tangent away from it, but like we had a long discussion, I don't know how many podcasts, about a long ways back, about like, the freedom of speech and the ability to just put content out there and stuff. And the problem with there being no quality control on that is bad information gets out there a lot, right? And so what is perceived, like, let's stay in the habitat space, what's perceived as like, this is what you should do, may not be what you should do at all, right? Or hey, you should plant this, or you should do this. Like, I remember there was this huge series that was talking about just poor soils and stuff. And they're like, you should just go plant ryegrass. And I'm like, no. Like, you should not plant ryegrass. Like, ryegrass is not good. Most of the South, probably even south of you, like Alabama, Mississippi, like there are a lot of ryegrass field plantings for deer that are just, they sit in a box blind, they kill them on the ryegrass field. But there are other things that could be planted that are way better for deer and are easy to establish. It's just, that was the thing to do. Or like we've heard before of like, there's been people that say don't plant brassicas because there's brassica toxicity. I'm like, is there brassica toxicity? Like that, there's enough people doing it that it doesn't seem like that's a thing out there. But
well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be right and wrong thing, all over the board there. I mean, you're smart enough to, and most people are, to get a general sense for that. It's like if there's enough testimonies, there's enough, what you can get a general sense of reliability. You know what I mean?
But it's exactly what Jeremy was talking about, where I want concentrated information rather than me having to go through and listen to somebody who, again, maybe the information is okay. But then maybe I go hinge cut half of my property.
Right.
And I go,
Well, what do you need is a prescription, a diagnosis of your specific situation.
Or I want you guys to tell me the resources to stay away from, or the resources to look
well, I don't know that there are. I mean,
well, it's the right or wrong of it, right? Because it
has to do with context, is what it is. You need to understand.
Yeah,
that's what we do. Like, we try to understand. If we're in the vein of like land management, we talk to lots of different consultants or people who manage their own properties and stuff, and it's all. I mean, there's some bad information, but there's a lot of good information.
Most of it is effective. It's just like maybe not in the scenario. Like if somebody said, well, Jeremy, you need to go out and plant 10 acres of your farm in warm season grasses for X reason, bedding, whatever you want to call it. I don't even have 10 acres of open ground on my property. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's impossible. I can't do, if I planted 10 acres on most of my places, I'd have 0 food plots, 0 food plantings. So, and we've had this discussion probably too many times where people are tired of hearing it, like switchgrass and stuff. I just don't know if I have good enough soils to even grow that stuff. Like it just doesn't seem to do what I see it doing online. Like when I see the Iowas and they're like, yeah, we planted this in 2 years at 7 foot tall. I'm like, yeah, I don't even know if mine grew in year 1 at all. So I think those are again, to your point, I don't know if it's bad information, but it's not relevant to my situation or applicable.
Why don't you tell us about your situation a little bit, Brandon?
So you guys are exactly right as far as poor soil quality, and I would argue that where we are, it's probably even worse than normal. So there's a band around Nashville that basically goes from the south part all the way over to the east side. That it's just like tons of limestone.
Oh yeah,
there will be multi-acre parcels, and I'm talking like there was 2 40-acre parcels that we tried to get to perk, and they couldn't even find a perk site.
Wow,
like that bad. So what we've got here is lots of hickory trees, lots of cedar trees, trees that don't have tap roots, that the roots spread wide, they don't go deep, and they basically just thrive sitting on the surface of all this limestone. And we've got horses and cows in 12 of the acres. But then the rest of our land is kind of like we've got options. I've got areas for like a small food plot. So
here, Brandon, stay bigger picture first. Are you in like a suburban area? Is it is it other like cattle farms and?
Okay, so wider area around me, we have some ag. I would say there's a significant amount of forested area. And the reason that's still there is, again, because of the limestone, the development's been slower down here. So it goes kind of Nashville, Brentwood, Franklin, Spring Hill. And it's like horribly expensive, unbelievably expensive, starting to get cheaper. And then that's where I am. So I'm like right outside of the starting to get cheaper area. And development has been slowly moving this way. But we would have had to spend 5 times what we spent on the land down here to get something that was 10 miles closer to town.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why we are where we are. But lots of forest. But the forest, to me, I mean, it's lots of hickories and cedars. That's kind of the primary trees. We do have ag fields. Primarily, I would say the ag around us is growing corn, but it's a ways away. Like I measured it out, and the closest one is 1.5 miles as the crow flies.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So what's closer? Like, what are some of the immediate
pasture cattle, ground, grass? Yeah, and cattle. And I'm lucky because there's basically one guy around me who controls the majority of the ground around us, and he just runs cows. That's it. And he's got like a couple buddies that'll come in and hunt every once in a while. They're super infrequent. When they shoot at something, they seem to shoot 4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Which is got to make sure they're dead.
Good volley.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Not bow hunters.
So he owns most of that forested land.
The forested is owned by different people, but the open country that's around us that's actually running cows is literally primarily owned by one guy, or he's leased up a bunch of the other land. So like we're sitting in the middle. It's tons of forest all around us on the west, and on the east side is a lot more open with range ground.
Are they big blocks of timber or like long, narrow residential strips?
Huge blocks.
Do you think they're getting very much hunting pressure?
Okay, this define very much. Like let's say per
how many guys per acre
or per farm even? Like if you're thinking 40
if you can tell us how big the farms are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's probably an easier way to do it, because if you were like how many guys per farm, I'd be like it's 0.12 guys per acre. Yeah. So when No.
That was hypothetical.
I can't figure out.
You're like, oh shit, that's a lot of guys.
Oh my god.
Listen, I would advise selling it this way. That's the best way to do it. Yeah.
No, I think that during archery season, the people that I know around here, it's very few. So like in the neighboring probably 1,000 acres that are around, I would guess that probably there's only 3 of us that I can think of between my farm and all the other ones that may have people that are archery hunting on a regular basis. Then when we switch over to rifle, it probably doubles that. So I would say on the surrounding 1,000 that I can think of, I would say there's probably 6 people that are sitting, but it's the same kind of thing. Very infrequent. Like it's the kind of thing where a guy will go out on, a Sunday morning and then he's taken all week off. Like this season I sat a lot and I was almost never hearing rifle shots that were remotely close. Like I'd hear them way in the distance during the week at all. In the morning or in the evening. And I was doing a decent amount of sitting both times. But I wonder, is it because people just perceive that it's not necessarily worth it? Like again, every once in a while you'll see somebody kill a pretty cool buck down here, but a pretty cool buck down here is like a 135 or 140. Every once in a while they'll get something a little bit bigger. But
well, I mean, and again, not to jump on this early in the game, but like in Pennsylvania, we're seeing similar things in gun season, and it's because everybody's crossbow hunting in archery season. Historically, it wasn't like that. Like when I grew up, you heard literally 150 to 200 shots on the opening day. Like it was a war zone. Now, if I hear 20, maybe.
What are you seeing from an age class standpoint? Like the deer that you are seeing is, let me start with this. Is the 40 the only piece that you're hunting or have access to? Is that's your sample size for the most part?
Yeah. And I could probably figure out more if I wanted to, but the truth is I just don't want to spend a lot of effort doing whitetail in and around me. Like I don't care enough. I did an Oklahoma lease for 2 years and I just realized like the effort of doing this is not worth it for what I'm getting. Like I would way rather spend my time and treasure going after elk or mule deer or something like that. And I love whitetail. I love them. It's a really cool way to hunt, all that kind of stuff. But because we have them here, I'm just relatively happy killing, does and the occasional buck. So I just don't really care about, I don't know. If I died not ever killing a 180 whitetail, I would be okay.
Well, what is the basis of your question? I mean, you're wanting to improve the property to achieve some level of success with whitetails.
That's super valid, actually. So yeah, better. And I guess what I want to find out is, all right, let me back up and let me ask more about the broad education, because I don't want this to be something where we just specifically go through my property. Maybe I do a little bit, but maybe not all the way. Okay. The Whitetail Habitat Solutions guy.
Yeah. Jeff.
Yeah. I assume you guys like him.
Yep. Yes, we do.
We like all of them.
We
do. No, I mean, there's good stuff you can take from all of them, and it's not are they good dudes or not. It's not. I mean, there's stuff to take from all of them. I think
most of them.
Some people you get online and you read some Reddit forum stuff, and they're like, "This seems like this dude's got some bad ideas. Like this seems like a guy who's not as thorough as he needs to be, or whatever. Like he's throwing some people some bad information."
Sure.
Well, and I think to the bad idea stuff, it very well could be a bad idea for their situation.
Exactly.
In general, it might not be.
But that still makes it a bad idea, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely does.
So Tony LaPratt is the one that has come up a couple of times, but I wanted to...
Which we haven't had Tony on. I've made several attempts to get Tony on. He's just busy, and I get that. Tony's expertise is in small farms, which would be applicable to your situation. I do believe Tony probably knows what he's talking about, but Tony's a Michigan guy, which is a completely different situation than Brandon in Tennessee. Not saying that Tony doesn't know how to consult in Tennessee, but from the
well, and we don't know, right? We've never talked to Tony.
I've watched content from like I said, I think Tony knows what he's very big into. Like, you've got a 3-acre field and we're going to cut it up into 18 sections. I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's an interesting take to maximize a small property. In this case, 40 acres would qualify for that. But I think it's also from a high-pressured state situation, which is Michigan, and not Tennessee.
If it works, in theory, if it works in a high pressure, it should work in a low pressure.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. What are you're saying? Reddit forums you're reading. You're saying there's some things pushing back on some of LaPratt's diagnoses. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're basically just saying like I found multiple things that were basically just saying like, this guy's a kook. Here's why it won't work. And again, that's just people's opinions.
Oh yeah.
Like this is just, so that's why.
Yeah. Just like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Are they
exactly?
Is there specific things, Brandon, or just like his character in general? They're just like, I just don't agree.
No,
with
I
him.
think that it probably is like state to state stuff.
Yeah.
And you may have actually hit on something that's interesting, because in a super high pressure area, the deer are going to flock to an area where they stop getting pressured, and then they're going to just stay there.
Correct.
Right. And it's not because they're smart. It's because all of a sudden somebody stopped bumping them.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want to go back. They learn they're not going to go back and get their ass kicked.
Well,
again.
there's an element of, it's not that they're smart, but they are good at surviving, and
they're aware of the surroundings.
Yeah. They understand that pressure is danger.
Is
and
bad.
They will avoid it if they can.
Yep.
And so I wonder, like, maybe he's using some of his techniques to set certain things up that it would be more conducive to create like, these really crazy buck beds and massive screens, so that you're walking into your stand in complete isolation. And like you were talking about, with cutting up the field into multiple, not multiple, like tons of different rows, so that there's multiple groups that can live around, that.
It's a unique, it is, I believe, and somebody else can yell at us, I believe Tony's one of the only people who advocates for that kind of stuff. Like to literally chop a field up into 10 pieces or something like that. I have not heard anyone else discuss it in that way.
I would say we're not, we don't share. I don't know. Like my knowledge of LaPrade is basically like I saw him and Higgins did the Legends debate. And the fact that they called it that, I just love. I think that's awesome.
Why don't we title this podcast that, actually?
Legends debate. Debating the legends.
But from that and a handful of other snippets that I've seen, over the years, my impression is that he's a very high manipulation type of a guy. Like there's a lot going on.
Yep.
Like,
yeah. That's why I think it's almost too much, like in my brain at least.
Well, just our style, our preference would be, and we're not hunting, I think, in as high pressure of areas. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but we're seeking out situations where we can have less obvious human manipulation and more general habitat improvements, and have a favorable result.
And I think that's the pressure aspect that Brandon was talking about, because I think that if deer are doing deer things, the natural habitat manipulation does what it needs to do. When deer are forced into doing things, I think you have to have over-the-top manipulation to make it work.
I'll give you an example. There's a comparable Bobby Kendall is high manipulation.
Super high.
But do you know who that is? That's in the Whitetail group.
Yeah, I think I've watched. I say that. You know what? I'm very visual. I'd have to go back and
You'd know him to see him.
We need to connect you with Bobby Kendall, because
actually Bobby's
from
a Nashville
Tennessee
guy.
He's an ex-musician.
Ex-musician, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna write it down, Bobby Kendall. I'll just make sure I've got it in here. Go ahead.
He has what's Bobby's thing? He's gonna laugh if he knows. Discord. He's got a damn Discord that he like.
That's awesome.
He's big into the
yeah,
forums.
I figured you dig that, man. Yeah.
He's like, everybody's on it. You gotta come join us.
Everybody's in Discord. I'm like, what?
But I bring it up because Bobby is a very high manipulation style as well.
Yes.
Even though he's in like a low pressure area, he's hunting Kansas and Iowa and Illinois. But I think he just gets a lot of satisfaction out of making them do exactly what he wants. So I think he'd prefer like a 50-acre blank field to any kind of timber or anything. He's like, I'm going to design every last aspect of it down to the fence.
It's like a maze.
Yeah. And so I would.
Yeah. I did, for me though, and I feel like for most people, they don't want to do that because they don't want to figure, they don't want to manage all that stuff. And the other issue with me is like, if I do it all and then I spend, whatever, thousands of dollars and tens of hours or more getting everything set up. And then they're like, oh no, your rows should have run this way and not this way. Yeah, exactly. Well, so like I would prefer lower touch.
Yeah.
Again, just because I feel like I want to take my time and money and put it elsewhere. But I do love getting out and touching everything a little bit and seeing where deer beds are and seeing where rubs and scrapes are. And, like just those little, that's like an enjoyable thing to go do. But I may also be like going and shooting my 3D range that's wrapping around the outside of the property while I'm just kind of noticing what's going on.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there that helps the metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer.
Can you want to describe your property a little bit to us? Like, is it wooded, or give us a little breakdown?
Sure. Could you guys see my screen if I shared it?
Yeah.
You can say no if you can't.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. So, and I'm zoomed in, relatively close, because if I zoom out, then I've got to like label all of the roads and all this. So this is a couple of years ago, right after we got the barn built.
Yep.
Basically, the property's the shape of the reverse of Oklahoma. So we follow this road here. We go down to here. Then it comes up here back behind my neighbor's farm. We cut across halfway through this field here, and then up here, and then back this way.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a fat reverse Oklahoma. And then the 5 acres is over here.
Is that kind of like a knob, that wooded section? It is.
Right up here's a knob. And we're actually going to build our house up here because it's like an awesome view.
Oh, yeah.
So
southwest facing.
Yep. That's exactly right.
You sound like my dad. You're like, let's put
How did you notice that orientation based on this?
I don't know. I just threw it out there.
I
did that's left.
Okay, I guess that's probably true that I would have had to have manipulated this. So for the people that aren't actually watching, basically the lower left-hand side of the property is like where we do our horses and cows.
Yep.
And this is all, 3-board wood fence, and we've got it split down the middle.
Open pasture.
Yes, open pasture. There's a creek that goes through here. It looks like absolute garbage right here. It looks mildly better now because my wife is like, it's easier to manage the horses if there's not much grass. And I'm like, it looks like shit.
It's a mud pit, yeah.
Your answer may differ from your wife's, but how attached are we to these horses?
If I ever want to get rid of my wife, I get rid of the horses first, and she
go with them.
Yeah. I see. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So fairly attached.
Exactly.
For the time
so basically, what I've got right down here, just outside of the pasture, is an open section that the deer actually. This is where they tend to come out, and what they'll do because of the fences that are on some of the neighbors' properties over here. They actually funnel out, cross the street. They miss this corner of our pasture, and they come through here, and then they hang out for a while, and then they head off to go to bed. And what we notice is this rotation around the entire property, and this is primarily with the does, where we'll see a group of like 7 does here, and then a couple of days later, they pop all the way out over on our 5 acres across the street. And then a couple of days later, they pop back into this. So it's like they're just kind of working this rotation.
You're talking about in the morning, right, Brandon? You're seeing that?
It depends. They're definitely more active in the morning, especially like.
Well, but that pattern. So, I mean, you understand that like in the evenings, they're generally coming from a bedding area and going to eat. Like, they're crepuscular. Right. So like at dusk, they're going to get up and work through generally a staging area. They're mingling and stuff, working out to a bigger food source. If that exists. And then the reverse is true in the morning. They're going back to a bedding area.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's the interesting thing is I would say from a patterning standpoint, I think that's why I don't think our property really holds them. I think that they're transitioning to those other areas, and they may transition through this. I planted alfalfa in the front on the 5, and they'll go hit that on their way to somewhere. And I think they're hitting it on their way to somewhere at night, and they're hitting it in the morning to go somewhere as well. Now, in this lower field here, that's basically right in the center of the property, but down low, like it's on road frontage. Again, for people that aren't seeing this, on the backside of this hill here, this is where everything gets like it's just loaded with beds. So they're hitting here, and then they're going up here. There's a small water source that rarely dries up over here. It's a very small, probably like 12 to 15 foot wide, shallow pond. And then down in here, which is over off to the right, off screen, there's a pretty big river that runs. So for them to go get water year round, it's pretty easy. This right here is a neighbor's food plot that he's pretty active with. Yeah. So that was another question that I had, because like, here's mine, here's my property line right here. So I'm like right up against this.
Yeah.
And then we actually have some different hardwoods in here. We've got some oak.
And that's where the bedding's at?
The bedding's up just a little bit higher from that.
Yeah. So they're on the leeward side of that hill on a west.
And then and then also on the north side of that hill, and especially in the summer, we see them on the side, which makes sense for
it's cooler.
Yeah, exactly. The biggest buck I've ever seen was probably a 150 8-point. So it was a really nice 8-point.
That's a big 8-point.
It's a giant.
Yeah. And he was in this oak grove. I had him on camera once, and that was it. And it was right at the end of the season. I'm sure he was just passing through. This is all super thick. So like lots of undergrowth, like I would, if we were just trying to walk full speed, you'd stab yourself in the eye multiple times on stuff. Like that's this area.
And did you say you're going to build a house like near the knob?
Yeah, we're going to go up. So, but we're going to incorporate in a lot of the limestone, a lot of the rock. Like we're probably going to have the backyard tiered, where you'll have exposed limestone faces with, grass on top of it, that kind of stuff. So we like kind of more contemporary architecture. So it'll be kind of a structure that most people would look at a farm and be like, what the hell are you doing, son?
Yeah. How's your driveway going to run up there?
Let's see. It'll go, basically, we've got a circular right here on the barn, and we'll use this leg that's on the north side of the barn, and then it's going to come right here. And we actually have the shop, the office I'm sitting in is built right here. So you'll drive past that and then up, and then it'll be house right here. And the intention is to clear some of this for a view.
And that field on the lower right is yours as well, right? Behind that barn?
Some of this, yes. About half of it.
About half of it.
Yep.
Interesting.
And there are deer that come out here.
For sure.
There are obviously there are deer that pass through here. The other thing that was interesting is there's this monster oak tree right at the corner back here, like one of those ones that 3 of us couldn't wrap our arms around.
Yeah.
And whoever was here before just used it as like a trash pile. So we cleaned it up, but that probably was inhibiting things for a while, because I'm talking a Volkswagen bus full of dirty used diapers.
Wow.
It was
nice.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you own that tree line on the eastern side of that field? Right there. Yep. Right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
A portion of it. It basically that's where our property line stops. So I would say if we owned any of it, it would be, maybe we had half of it.
Like you could hang a tree stand in one of those trees, or no?
I think yes.
Right.
And I'm good friends with the guy, so I could probably I could probably say, hey, I'm going to put this right
That's
on
good
our
enough for
property
me.
line. I know that's an asshole move.
No,
So-
it'll be fine.
Well, when in doubt, you can always go. Yeah, I mean, talk to him first, but you can go ladder stand like facing into your property. I mean, so Jeremy, we can diagnose it together. I see, 2 great potential food sources. Also, is Tennessee a bait state?
No, 2 weeks before the season, you got to pull bait.
Okay. So
that helps.
So I see the back half of this field on the southeast. Obviously, you'd want to have some screening on the southern side of it to separate it from the house and everything that's going on.
That one, Brandon.
How big is that? How big is that field?
3 acres.
Yeah, and then I probably have the back acre. That's my guess.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is
Maybe,
plenty.
maybe it's a hair smaller than that. Maybe I've got 3/4 of an acre.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So 3/4 of an acre, and then you have the opening on the left-hand side there.
That one right next to the fence line.
Yep.
Over here?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And can you access the field to the right from the road, or is that like?
Technically, he's walking through the neighbor's property there.
Yeah. So if I were to do that, and I would basically want to talk to the other landowner again. We're friends, and I would want to say, hey, here's what I'm gonna do. Do you mind if I access it this certain way?
That would be the key.
Yeah. Now we have a trail system that goes all the way throughout basically our entire property here, but
yeah, you don't want to use that. Don't use that.
Like
not from an ingress egress type standpoint.
Absolutely, it makes way more sense to me to go on the road and then figure out something where I was, coming up.
Kind of make or break that spot on a west or northwest wind.
Yeah, I mean, from what we can see,
it's very obvious to you guys.
Well, probably what I was gonna say is probably shouldn't even make a prescription just without having been on the property. But there's I think a pretty obvious setup here, with a food source in the western side.
Mm-hmm. You're talking right next to the fence row. Like that's his fenced pasture.
We need a laser pointer here, but yeah. So here you get your pasture, your pasture, and then we have a food source there. You know, let's say that is 2 or 3 acres. So whatever that food source is. I'd hunt on the southeastern side of it on a northeast wind, and you'd access it off of the road.
Southeastern side of it on a northeast wind?
Mm-hmm. And
wouldn't you hunt it on a northwest wind?
Oh, sorry. It's northwest wind.
Okay.
Yes. I'd hunt on the
southeast side on a northwest wind.
Yeah. See, and I wondered, it wouldn't be hard for me to stick a stand over here and a stand over here. But that's the other thing is, is it worth sticking a box blind right in the damn middle up here?
It's all about access on that one. Yeah, we were talking about the one to the west.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one, hunting on the southeast part of that field on a northwest wind and coming in from around.
I assume there's a road
property
coming from the east off that knob that they all walk down in there. And so you want to be 20, 30 yards from that on the south side of it.
Yeah, you can push up. Can you walk straight from the road right north into that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and I can be pretty quiet. Like it's still pretty screened because there's a lot of big trees right here.
Yep, that's perfect.
And so walking just straight down the road and getting up in there,
honestly,
and then I can stick the stand down in here, which I've done in the past and had good success.
That may be one of the only spots you need to hunt, frankly.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. The only thing I do like about planning this other one, if you screened the middle of the field, so basically screen your property line.
Are you talking about the eastern field or are you talking about
the eastern field? Screen your property line. So literally, I would not do switchgrass. It's my would be like 8 to 12 feet of Egyptian wheat, like a wall.
Egyptian wheat.
Yep.
And I can also look up other things.
Whatever. Like Sturgis is for pure wildlife is deer fence. It's called deer fence. It's got Egyptian wheat and giant sorghum and stuff like that in there.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm building a Trump wall right there, 12 feet wide. It's going to be 14. Huge. It'll be 14 feet tall. It is a wall. It is a visual barrier, and it'll grow. Yep. You'll plant it in May or June. And by the time you get to September, October, it will be 14 foot tall. It'll be.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
seriously?
Awesome. Yeah, and the nice thing about doing it, it's an annual. So the nice thing about doing it this first year is, for some reason, if this plan doesn't work, it's not permanent. Like it just dies. Yep. Then I would plant that food plot. Maybe in some rare cases you hunt it, but I'm trying to pull them away from your neighbor. Yeah, right there. I'm trying to use 2 of those plots to pull those deer away from that.
Yep.
That would be my thought there. And in a bold move, or you talk to the neighbor, if you could get the neighbor to say, yeah, I can walk up and use that hedgerow on the east side of that plot and get into a stand, basically put a stand or a box blind right at the corner where your wall meets that hedgerow. Oh, yeah, deadly.
Yeah.
Deadly.
Yep. No, I love that idea.
So how big do we think this field is to the left here?
Not that big.
This
acre and a half, maybe.
Yeah. Like how much plantable acreage do you think you have there?
I think that what will actually grow, and then because my wife's got a little area to ride in and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's gone.
So yeah, forget that. We don't need that.
It's done.
I would say that there's probably another 3/4 of an acre of like good soil that I actually had brought in when we did a lot of. We had 100 loads of soil brought in.
Wow.
To basically a lot of the rock over here, and we put a bunch over on this side as well. So I'd say there's another 3/4 to 1 acre of like really good plantable soil that should grow whatever. Yeah.
I will say, I don't know what to plant down there. You know what I mean? It's like
I guess goes back to like Brandon, is it a bow hunting focus? Is it a gun hunting focus? Is it both?
It'll be bow. Yeah, if I can be lazy and I can just go pop deer with the rifle if I see them, like that's one of those where I can come out here naked on my back deck, and if I happen to see them,
that's everybody's dream. I would be oats and clover. That's what I would plant. I'd get clover in the spring if you can. If you have to get in the fall, it's great. I'd use oats as a cover crop. I'd reseed oats in the fall and Labor Day time frame. And yeah,
are you guys doing like soil testing and then fertilizing is needed, or are you literally just like, nope, just throw it down?
Well, I mean, we are fertilizing. We're either doing dry fertilizers or we're doing the deer grow stuff, but we're not rare. I mean, I have done soil tests. I do soil tests every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I don't do it.
But is that because you're in an area where it's just not really an issue?
No, I just don't care. I'm just trying to get green food to grow for the deer.
Do you have
I'm not a farmer.
Do you have co-ops down there? Like
yeah.
I would just call one of. I mean, the right answer is do a soil sample, and it's really not that hard. But I've defaulted to just I'll call a co-op and say, here's what I want to plant. Can you give me a general prescription for what I need? And you might overpay or under fertilize slightly, but over the years it's gonna.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, you're not growing bushels. You're growing food for deer, and if it grows, I mean, it's like. If you can get, like, I know you get a buggy of your fertilizer out there. They make like a custom mix for you. That's awesome. I have to hand bag mine. And so like, I'll get a bunch of, 5, if I'm going to do clover, I'll get as many 5, 20, 20 bags as I can get for an acre. Maybe that's 5, maybe that's 7. I'll spread it. And then I just use the Deer Grow liquid fertilizers when it comes up. And
are you killing any of the existing, like if there's grass or whatever, are you killing any of the existing grass?
Yeah, I'm nuking it when I put the clover seed down.
Okay.
That's that's one of the most important things is like managing the weeds.
But I'm trying not to disc at all. I do not want to spray and disc and then plant because I'm just bringing up all that disturbance. I'm trying to.
Have you planted a food plot? Do you know?
Spray it.
Do you have that part of it down or?
Well, I mean, I've done some, but I just don't feel like it's been crazy effective. And so that's why I'm asking some of the things to confirm my suspicions. And then some of the things I've got a 50 horsepower tractor. I've got a 500-pound seed spreader on the back. So like I can do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's your fertilizer. I mean, that's what you want to do your fertilizer. But from a clover seed standpoint, I'm going into the area, I'm nuking it, and I'm just seeding clover in on the ground, and the rain's going to work it in. I'm not disking, tilling, drilling, any of that stuff.
You should buy a bag seeder if you don't have one.
Oh, yeah.
For
the old earth way.
Small of acreage is just better control.
Got one. Yeah, that's great. It's my favorite thing to do if I want ticks all over and chiggers.
Yeah.
That's the best.
That's nice.
The thing with clover too is like it's hard to overdo it. I think. Well, I mean, I think what they call for is 8 to 10 pounds.
It's like 8. Yeah, for a frost seed, it's heavier, but white clover is really like 5 to 7, I think.
Okay, so somewhere there, 5 to 10 pounds per acre, roughly, and then. But you can put it down like really any time, as long as you're having timely rains. Like Jeremy and I will just keep a bag seeder and some clover in us. Like anytime we're going out to check cameras and stuff throughout the season, if it seems like, oh, there's a patch that didn't take or whatever, or just it's looking thin, like we'll just put more clover seed down and eventually it's going to fill in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you think it matters if I check and see what the neighbor guy is growing on his little strip over there?
I mean, it'd be cool knowledge to know. Like, if he's putting in just cereal grains, like, you're gonna have way more of those deer on your property in the summertime and probably even in like September. But as October and November come around, he's gonna be as attractive as you are, you know, from a food plot side. If he's doing something like brassicas in Tennessee, I think you capture the majority of the season, and he's going to be focusing on late November, December, January even.
And I planted some brassicas this year, and I did it in some rows and then put a camera on it. And you're exactly right. They did not touch the stuff until late November, early December.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So that's where clover, and Jared and I are personally just coming back. I mean, we've done clover in the past, obviously, but we're coming back around to like, boy, it is such a staple on a property, and it's so browse tolerant. When you're talking about 3/4 of an acre and 2 fields, basically to support, I'm assuming, a decent deer population, you don't want, let's say they did really like brassicas. You don't want to plant the brassica because they're going to mow it and there's not going to be anything left. You're going to have to come in with cereal grains anyways to save the plot. So clover's just very tolerable to deer pressure. It's attractive so much of the year. And like right now, I mean, dude, you'd have turkeys strutting all through that stuff.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, it's crazy over here. There's 2 flocks of turkeys that run probably on that 1,000 acres like I was talking about, that are 50 head each. It's unreal. Like, just driving into town, you're just like multiple days a week trying to go slow to not hit them as they're all just hanging out on the road on the left side, right side. It's so bananas.
Yeah.
I get more calls from people asking if they can come turkey hunt the farm than anything
else. That
else.
sounds right. Well, you've got that roosting ridge there that is probably pretty attractive for the setup. And yeah, I mean, that's what I would do. And I mean, you could mix and match. You could do a cereal grain field and you could do a clover field, like, if you wanted to. I like that you have that. How big's that alfalfa field on that 5 acres?
Probably the same thing. Actually, maybe a little bit bigger. We probably got an acre of that.
I like that too, just as like a little bit of another destination source. I mean, high protein. It's a 9-month feeder basically from a providing. Actually, it may even be better than that in Tennessee just because of your warmer climate. You may be having active growth alfalfa through most of the year.
Yeah, and what's been interesting about that one is there's 200 acres of full wooded basically ahead of that. And they come through that 200 acres and then they hit my neighbor's fence. He's got a really deep 10 acres. So then when they hit that fence line, they just work that fence line all the way forward and then into that field. So we see them there a lot.
Yep.
The issue there is the best tree to hunt them out of is 5 feet from the road because of the wind and all that stuff, which is not, not quite super perfect. Or I can shoot arrows across the road.
Yeah, just launch them. Let them roll. Let them rip. You should get. Did you ever see one of those crossbows that shoot 100 yards?
Listen, I don't want to get into the crossbow argument because it's pissing me off. Because you're probably right that all these assholes out here that are used to have muzzle loaders buying freaking 460 foot per second crossbows.
And I can't blame them, right? Like it's better weather. You have longer seasons to do it. Like, I know for a fact it's exactly what's happened in Pennsylvania. I don't know about other states, but like they have migrated into the archery season. They kill their deer or hunt a lot in archery, and then they just don't feel the pressure to be out during gun season. And so, like, it's the craziest thing. Like, growing up in a state where there were so many guys gun hunting during the deer season here, like an astronomical amount of guys, to where there are people literally complaining that there's not enough guys in the woods to move deer around now during gun season. So I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever hear that in this state.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see what happens. So my buddy Josh, I like FMJJ, like you were saying there. That's great. MFJJ. He owns Spokane Valley Archery out in Washington.
It's the old Full Metal Jacket thing. That's what gets you.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I think it's cool. So he owned SVA out in Washington, like huge shop. And then there was an opportunity for him to come into Nashville, and he opened one here. And basically, like, I'm really curious to see. He didn't want to do it, or he was questioning whether he should do it. But now there's a wall of crossbows.
Has to.
in one of the sections, and I'm really curious, that, and then tree stands. He was like, I don't really want to do the tree stands. I was like, you have to do tree stands. Like, are you insane? You have to carry these. And I have a feeling like, and the crazy thing is, it'll be the week before the season starts.
The timing of this conversation is really interesting because I was just at our bow shop, dropping off some of our bows to get set up and stuff. And I had this I happened to catch them alone. There's 2 guys that run the shop, and I've been going there since I was like 10 years old. It's like my lifetime, bow shop.
Yeah.
And it was just time of day. I caught them. It's just the 2 of them. It didn't seem like they had a whole lot going on there. And we just got to talking. I was there for probably like an hour and a half. And I was just asking about their business, and how it's changed, like, with the introduction of crossbows and really over the past, 5 or 10 years. And they have said that their crossbow, and they're not like catering, like they only carry 1 line of crossbows. I think it's like 10 point. They'll work on any of them, but they only sell 1 brand. And they are bow hunters themselves. It's always been like, it's a bow hunter shop. But despite that, they said over 50% of their business now is crossbows.
Wow.
Not just sales, but also working on them. And to your point, what you were just saying, he's like, because I was like, I'm always encouraging them to like, dude, do you guys get out to hunt anymore? Like, I'm always trying to light a fire under them to be like, man, you guys need to spend more time in the woods. And they're like, well, we used to have some time, like, generally by November and stuff, everybody's hunting and stuff. So we might get a few days to step away or whatever, but they're like, everybody breaks their crossbows or wants to buy one the day before they go out. So they're like, now we're super busy all the way through like the heart of the season because they're either selling crossbows that people are like wanting to turn around and hunt with that day, or they're fixing things that they blew them up or did whatever. They don't know how to use them. So
I think that some of the super high speed brands say that they're rated for like 15 shots and that's it. And then you have to replace the strings and cables.
Well, I asked about that. I said, is it something wrong? Like, is it a design flaw? He's like, it's 99% user error.
Is that because they're like, they're using like too light of an arrow user error, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
either.
It's
a tough one because crossbow bolts, I don't think there's quite as much variation in crossbow bolts as there is arrows.
There isn't. There is not at all. I guess my thing is, so like everybody knows, my kids shoot a crossbow still. And I mean, it's a Raven I bought 2000 and I'm trying to think when Carter killed his first deer, 2018, 17, 18, something like that. Right. It's been a while, maybe 19. I don't know. Anyways, like comes with standard bolts. Right. And I've recently bought other ones that I can put, inserts in. Because I'm like, well, just like a normal arrow, like I should worry about FOC and penetration and everything else, right? Because the thing that you will notice, anyone who's had a crossbow bolt in their hand, is they're super light, right? And so my thought process there is like that crossbow is fast, but not nearly as fast as like these new ones they're making. Like, to your point about like it can only do 15 shots or whatever, is like, we've all talked about like you don't want to shoot an extremely light arrow out of a very, very fast bow and or crossbow. Like, could blow up. Like the arrow could just disintegrate on you essentially. So what does that look like from a crossbow standpoint? Because I assume people aren't building their, I know some people are, so that right now they're yelling at me, but most people are not building their bolts like we build our arrows to shoot out of a 410 feet per second crossbow they just bought off the shelf.
I don't know. I mean, Josh would know, right? You talk to him, like what issues are people having with their crossbows?
That's the thing, is he's just opened the shop, and the vast majority of the people that are buying are people that watch his content, which are vertical bow shooters. It's not crossbow stuff. So he's just now starting to get into basically, hey, I'm going to start making some crossbow content, start doing some reviews that are like the standard,
That'll be interesting. I don't see that.
I'm curious too, because I am curious about what are the types of people that are buying crossbows, because I feel like I've got a lot of stereotypes like mind.
I think you'll be disappointed. Unfortunately. We have people all the time. They're like, you guys really, do them dirty or whatever. You should really have on a diehard crossbow guy. And I'm like, okay, like if you can find one, we'll have them on.
I hope that it's a lot of dads who have 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old.
Oh, that's
kids.
Great thinking on your part, but you're wrong.
I hope it's a lot of disabled 80-year-old men that are doing it. That's what I hope.
Yeah, we can always have hope.
I get it. I know that's probably not the case. It's probably a bunch of dudes like CJ Alexander.
Very possible.
Probably, yeah.
But I mean, all right. So like, he's going to open up a shop. He's going to do some tests. Like, I think that's really cool because I would say there is a concern on extremely light bolts coming out of a extremely fast crossbow.
So I haven't done much research. Do you have any idea what grains that your bolt is? Like, are we in the 300s, 400s?
We're in the 300s.
In terms of stiffness?
Now,
no, in terms of like weight.
Diameter of the shaft is wider.
It is larger. Yep.
And it's a shorter arrow. So in theory, you're getting less dynamic flying out of it.
Yeah, they're 21-inch bolts, give or take.
Yeah. So it's not exact. Like when you think about the physics of it, it's not exactly the same as having a 32-inch long arrow, which would be very long.
Yep.
And the issues that would create
right.
if it was a very narrow diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that'd be interesting. I mean, any idea how many shots you guys have put through your crossbow over that time, and have you ever changed strings and cables?
No.
Risking your children's lives.
No, I've never. I usually shoot the first one, and then I let them shoot. I don't know. I mean, we probably have shot several hundred.
Okay.
Out of that.
Yeah,
and no, the answer is no, I've never, mainly because I'm embarrassed to take it to a bow shop. If I took that into Tim and Jason, they'd get out.
I mean, are you seeing any serving separation or fraying of the strings or anything like that?
Yeah, probably a little bit.
You're the dad that'll put his kids in a go-kart that'll go 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, they have a helmet on.
It looks a little low. Maybe it's also missing a couple lug nuts.
They have a helmet. It's fine.
Rock.
I mean, I will say now.
Here, I just Googled it. I said, what's the most common crossbow issues? It says they include string and cable breakage, limb failures.
On my way.
Improper cocking.
Well, no, I know how to do that.
And dry firing, which can damage the bow and potentially cause injury.
I see that happening.
It's hard to dry fire a crossbow, though.
Yeah, because it's got to have the trigger.
It's like what you insert the bolt and it kind of releases the safety mechanism.
Because if you don't, it won't. Yeah, I don't know how you do that. So I will say now, and this has always been my beef with the kind of crossbow crowd, is that my kids are getting older now, but I mean, my youngest killed his when he had just turned 5 when he killed his. So when people say, well, it's the same as vertical bow, it's not.
No way.
I don't literally. I will pull. It's like gun season all over again. I will pull it out of the case 2 days before the season. I'll take a shot to make sure everything seems good. I'll let them shoot twice. It's on at 25 yards. We hunt. It goes back in its case. That's it. And I would say, I mean, when they shoot at a deer, they kill it. Like, it's dead. It goes back in its case. Do
your kids, do they want to practice with it?
No.
Is that a thing? Do you not want them to practice with it? It's not necessary, or?
It's not necessary. I mean, if they wanted to, I'd let them, but it's not necessary. I mean, they shoot 2 times at 25 yards and they're touching arrows in the 12 ring. Like, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Yeah. Why would
I guess
they?
that's satisfactory, yeah.
That's what I mean. And maybe that's irresponsible of me, but why would they?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. Just if the satisfaction of some sort of challenge where you said, all right, we're going to pop a balloon that's the size of a softball at 100, that may give them some sort of okay, that could be fun. Let's go try that. We're familiar with the crossbow, but
they know that I'm not going to let them shoot. If it's a 180-inch deer at 26 yards, I will not let them shoot it. 25 and
I'd be hold over just a little bit. Just hold up. Just
I won't let them do it. I mean, we had, giant does just standing at 26, and I'm like, not yet, man. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's just the 20. Not that, I mean, clearly that thing's not, the bolt's not dropping. Like, they could just put it on and kill it. But it's just part of I just want them to have those closer encounters and higher percentage shots. And that's just the barrier.
And what we're also talking about is like just hunt philosophy. And in my opinion, one of the reasons that I didn't like gun hunting growing up was we would show up in West Texas at Thanksgiving when it was cold and gross out. And then we would wake up at 3 a.m. and go sit on a pile of tires waiting for a deer to walk out in inadequate clothing. And you're like, oh, this is hunting. This just sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd see, one day out of the 5 we'd be there, you'd see deer.
Yeah.
And so like for you to create an experience for your kids that's like enjoyable, where they're getting to be that close to animals that they're taking, and they're getting the satisfaction of, I killed the deer. I brought the deer home. We put it in the freezer. We ate the deer. That's my deer. Like, I think there's something really, I think that's an appropriate use of it.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's a good use of that tool.
I think so. Now I drew the line though. Like this year, and I'm excited. I'm gonna go see Tim and Jason at the shop, and I'm gonna get them both fitted with their first compound. And I would assume my oldest will be able to draw, and whether he wants to, like he's the one who's kind of like, I'm not sure if I want to hunt. I'm like, okay, man, whatever. My youngest might not be able to draw enough that I feel comfortable with putting him in a stand to hunt this year. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll surprise me. But obviously, in that case, they have to practice, right? Like, I'm not going to let them go out and sling 2 shots at 10 yards, put it in a pie plate, and be like, cool, guys, let's go hunt. Like, that won't happen. So, essentially, if they want to bow hunt this year, it'll be either my decision to say, hey, you're not good enough with the compound, let's take the crossbow out, or you're not hunting until you're good enough with the compound. And that'll be the first year that we've had this, like, we had it with turkey season last year. Like, they've killed several birds out of blinds on decoys. And so last year I was like, hey, no blinds. We're just running and gunning. And they missed. They both missed, but it was a blast. They had fun. Yeah. So, like, in my case now, I'm like, unless it's for some crazy reason we're taking someone else or whatever, no more blinds. Like, we're just running and gunning for turkeys. That's how we're going to hunt until you leave dad behind at some point.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I don't know how to approach this. If guys ask me all the time, I'm like, dude, I'm the worst at it because I'm so ate up with deer hunting, and my oldest probably could care less. And I wonder, like, what I did wrong. But I think it's just some people are meant to do it and some just don't want to. And maybe 2 years from now, that's all he does. I don't know. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Damn hormones.
But you still can create good experiences for them. Like, them as it's 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 boys, and you can say, all right, when we're doing vertical bow, whatever, one of the kids is practicing because he's going to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one is just, we're going to go be together and be a family. And if you literally use balloons or you use ridiculous things that they can shoot at, and you create challenges for them, that little spark of competition or that little fear of failure or whatever that thing is may make that fun enough that they shoot twice as many arrows. And I saw that with my nephew. When I put balloons out, we probably shot 200 shots, and he's got, one of those little compound bows you just shoot with your finger. And he was obsessed. But as soon as I stopped putting the balloons down there, he'd shoot 3 or 4 arrows.
Yeah, and done.
Yeah. So just finding that little mechanism that creates enough interest, because he wasn't hitting that many balloons. He was just watching how close the arrow was getting.
It was a goal that was. There was the carrot. Go get it.
That makes me wonder, like, this is not a joke and quite, like, do people practice with crossbows? Like, just in general?
And listen, I'm guilty of, probably when I was in my 20s, like, I would get so mad when people would show up to deer camp, open their case, blow, dust off the gun Sunday night, and go out and hunt with them Monday. And I'm like, do you even know if this is on? Like, when's the last time you've shot? Like, how many... They may not have shot that gun for 5 years, and who knows what. So, like, I get that. But, I mean, if I pull a crossbow out of a case and I shoot 2 or 3 bolts at it and it's like, do you need to practice with that? I don't. I mean, I think that's probably where the distance comes in. Like if you're going to go out, and there are plenty of people that are shooting 60, 70, 80 yards with these new crossbows. If you're going to do that, yes, you better practice, because that's not an automatic, I don't think.
Yeah, I would guarantee you that there are guys that are taking 100-yard plus shots with crossbows. And I think that there are probably guys that are going out there and that are practicing at those distances because it's fun for them.
Yeah.
Because that is fun. Like if I take a 243 with a 4-power scope and I'm trying to lob, like shoot 500, 600 yards, that's fun.
That's fun.
It's just interesting to see what's going to happen. It's not fun to shoot at 50 yards with that.
No.
Because you know what's going to happen. So like if you were trying to create a sense of like, even with the crossbow, let's just see how far we can shoot this thing.
Yeah,
that becomes a different
thing.
Do you think that most shots are taken off of like with a stick? Like a shooting stick?
I would think so.
Yeah. Or the rail of a
or the rail. Or the rail
Yeah.
of a ladder. And honestly, not so much because of stability, because they're heavy. Like a crossbow, most crossbows are fairly heavy. So from
especially for kids.
Oh yeah.
And for older people, which are the two classes of people that's the only people that are shooting crossbows. Yeah, I would argue that they for sure.
Yeah,
they
but
for sure should be.
You would say majority of the time though, there's some stability.
Off arrest.
Like there's off arrest or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which also makes it just that much more frustrating as an archery hunter.
Sure.
But like we're all looking for edge. That's the interesting thing.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of Lone Wolves for many years, the original Lone Wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we were using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DePustos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the Lone Wolf.
I had this conversation with Josh, MFJJ, a while back. He thinks that in the state of Tennessee, everybody should be able to bait. He says you should be able to bait because you, as a rich man, and I'm putting that in quotes, own land that you can plant the bait in the ground and wait for the bait to grow. And what you're saying to people who don't have public land or who don't have private land and only have public land is, sorry, you didn't have enough money to plant your bait in the ground 6 months ago. Sorry, enjoy being poor. And so there's an interesting like parallel between people who don't have enough time to practice, whatever. I feel like I create the luxury of practicing a vertical bow.
Yeah.
And there may be people that they want a deer hunt, they want the meat in the freezer, and they don't practice or they choose not to practice. So the edge that they're creating is, I'm going to use a crossbow, and it's illegal during this season. Why would I not use that edge?
It's not to use overuse the word edge, but the two-edged kind of like way to look at it, I think, because it's like just like someone is not inherently poor the way that they're inherently short. Like, it's something that you can change, right? And in saying that, I'm not saying it's a good thing that it requires money to purchase land and gain access, right? They are two different things.
Sure.
Like, so on the latter, we don't like that, and I think. Frankly, I think that that's the very thing. You've heard this podcast, right? A lot of what we think that technology and things that make deer hunting easier is what actually is limiting access for people because the demand for them is high. So people, an example of that would be like, boy, I've walked this through so many times, It's like, but to do it again, it's like and use
do it again, because listen, not everybody has listened to this.
I know.
And I've not listened to every single one of your podcasts.
I know.
Joe Rogan says the same stories 500 times, and I'll listen to them 500 more.
I know.
It's great.
I know Jeremy's tired of hearing me harp on it, or vice versa. No,
I enjoy it.
The dynamic that we believe exists is that the things that make deer hunting easier, or just deer easier to kill, those could be any one thing or combination of things. They could be baiting, they could be cell cameras, they could be crossbows, they could be all of them combined. Okay, you get the point. We think that those basically create competition between hunters, and
for a limited resource.
Yeah, they're fighting for a limited resource, which are deer, and especially quality, high-scoring trophy deer. And so that people with money, will purchase more land, try to cut off access to more people to, secure the opportunity for themselves. It's just like supply and demand. And so the more of those things that are allowed, the technologies, the things that makes it easier, it's creating a further divide between a rich class and a poor class of hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same light, we look at like corn piles is basically
welfare,
like a welfare program for hunters. It's taking the wealth of
No, this is great. I think this is I completely agree. Keep going.
Well, I'm not saying that like I think welfare is great. I think some people it's not an anti-welfare statement. It's just,
I totally get it.
It's taking, something that should exist on, deer want to exist on larger properties where there is good habitat. Like that's just the nature of the species, or small, the size of it doesn't matter, but it's correlated with hunting pressure and stuff like that. And so when you take something unnatural, like a corn pile, and people will make the argument of a food plot too. I think it's fairly valid. I guess we can address that. It's going to distribute the perceived wealth of or where those animals are onto properties that that are just not supposed to be there.
So much like a welfare program, and I won't classify everybody in it because there are people that need it and frankly deserve it. There are people who do nothing and are lazy and get paid for it when they shouldn't get paid for it. Much like there are properties that are pieces of shit that are 2 acres that should not have 10 deer on them, that put a corn pile on it and have 10 deer on it. That's the analogy.
No, I love it. I think it's super accurate. And I think that you guys have, kind of nailed the spirit with that analogy. I wouldn't hesitate to share that more again, just because as you continue.
I just don't understand the, I do to a point, so maybe it's a little question. I don't understand that. I mean, we take a lot of flack for that. There are a lot of people that are like, you want to ruin my deer hunting by taking away baiting.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of people taking advantage of that situation. And I'm not saying they're doing the wrong thing, but there's a lot of people in bait states, hunting over corn piles with crossbows, and they really enjoy the ability to do that,
And the reality is, if we took baiting away, especially keep crossbows, keep that, that's fine, keep that. If we took baiting away, they would likely not kill deer on their 2-acre property that they have.
For sure.
Right? That would be it. I don't think anybody is denying the fact that we would take that away and you wouldn't be as successful on your 2-acre property killing a deer.
There would definitely be a shift.
But that's also that's reality. The deer shouldn't be on your 2-acre property all the time in a hunting situation. And if they are, they would be there without the bait.
So,
how many guys do you know that the cell camera goes off? So I've got 2 cell cameras that are in view of my porches.
Mm-hmm.
And if they go off, I can go out with a scope on a rifle and I could kill a deer. And the cell cameras are now so responsive and so quick, the deer are still there. So that's also an interesting one.
Yeah.
The technology, but is that just an edge? Or is that wait,
what do you mean? Let me finish. What's the question?
Well, is that an edge, or is it again, are we getting into the end of we're just cheating now?
But are you just defining edge as we need an advantage to kill these deer? Because we don't. We've killed them for centuries without the edge.
No, what it is it's my ability to use technology to work for me so that I can be lazier or that I can be doing something else. and then all of a sudden get a notice on my phone and go, oh, that's my target buck. Walk out on my back porch while I'm smoking a brisket, making sure that my son is eating his dinner, shoot my target buck. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in a weird way, that edge situation, if it could coexist and other people could have good experiences, I don't care. Like, yeah, it's your property. It's your right. Like, do it. Like, the deer is not your property, but it is occupying your property. And if it's legal to shoot that deer off of your porch with a gun, yeah, go for it. I think in terms of cell cameras being the edge, the downfall of the cell cameras is the occupying and monitoring of properties, mass properties, with no hunting happening. Meaning people, including Jared and I, are guilty of doing it ourselves in the past, of going and getting lease this property, lease this property, lease this property, put cameras on it, cell cams on it, wait for a big deer to show up. None ever showed up. We didn't even hunt it, but guess what? Nobody else got to hunt it either.
Yeah, this is so interesting. So let me tell you about another kind of interesting scenario that I think runs in this vein. So 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I bought 40 acres in southern Colorado.
Okay.
And it's in a much larger neighborhood that basically it's a multi tens of thousand of acre neighborhood. And everybody in there can either opt in or opt out their property. And if you opt in your property, that means everybody in the entire neighborhood can hunt your ground. And then within that area, the entire zone is all private ground. So there's no public, but I can just go buy an over-the-counter tag.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I said, okay, I'm going to use 6 figures of my money, and I'm going to purchase a place that I can go elk hunt all the time, every single year that I want to in the state of Colorado. So that was an edge that I figured out. It was a buddy of mine, actually. I won't take credit for it. And then Colorado changed the rules.
Right.
And so now I have no idea how long it's going to take for me to draw that. And what we're seeing is in that community, properties go up for sale because guys were doing exactly what we were doing, which was like, hey, I'm cool to stick some money here. I want to have an edge because I want to go DIY hunt this large private. And they figured out this little interesting kind of loophole. And then the state of Colorado basically closed it by. And like I said, maybe I can draw every other year because the density of people that are applying is really low. But like mule deer, it takes 8 points. So if you're telling me it's going to take 8 years for me to draw an elk in there, like I go, oh, okay. Do I really want to own this piece of property that bad? Like, and I kind of realized, okay, I love the idea of having a cabin on it, but
yeah, that wasn't the
that
initial thought and plan and strategy with it.
Yeah.
I think you'd see that. You would see that with these edge pieces. If you took away cell cameras, you could leave regular trucking. You took away cell cameras, immediately there would be properties that were not leased or unleased and properties that likely would go up to sell from non-residents because of the time it would take to manage and efficiently hunt that. Like, that's the thing, is the edge has given us the efficiency in hunting. Like you said, I could sit around, do nothing, boom, get a picture, be out there, kill that deer. I don't have to put the time and effort into doing that. So if you took
How
that
does that
away,
relate to his situation?
well, it's the changing that then frees up the access.
To me, it's still like there's whatever technology, or again, I found it's these little weird loopholes.
Yeah.
Like, so the thermal drones now,
Yeah.
you know, that I can go put a $500 or $600 drone in the air, and like, why couldn't I do that? Why couldn't I put a drone in the air over my private property? And I'm not going to go kill a doe. I want to go kill my target buck. So why can't I go find my target buck with my thermal drone so that I'm not wasting my time and I'm not killing a doe? I'm not accidentally killing a doe, or I'm going to just go make sure that I'm getting the largest buck that I can off the property. Why can't I go use that piece of technology to go find it?
All right. This is what we run into all the time, is like it's the line between like the private landowner rights and the public resource consumption or manipulation, you know,
it feels gross. That's the weird part, is like the spirit of hunting to me.
What feels gross?
The drone hunting,
sure.
The cell camera hunting feels a little gross. Honestly, me buying property in Southern Colorado as a loophole to try to get.
Well, that's the challenge. It does to a lot of people, right? But at the same time, wouldn't you also want to say, well, if I want to run a camera to monitor my private piece of property, like you should be able to, right? Like we're in the same kind of conundrum, because you're like, we are strong advocates for private landowner. You should be able to put a drone up over your own property and survey. I don't care what you do on your own property, but the minute you start using it to have an advantage, or or to manipulate, in the case of corn piles, like we were talking about earlier, a public resource, that's where, I think an attempt at drawing a line should be made.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys done any, like, do you follow the Hunt Quietly, Stephen
or
any of those types of people?
Yeah, we've had Matt on. We had Matt on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Explain to me how that works. Like, how do you have, like, I'm anti-social media, I'm anti this. Can you explain to me the dichotomy of all that?
No, not really.
We can.
Matt, we actually agree with quite a few.
Do the basis of his argument. After the fact comes the social media thing, because like any cause needs awareness, and that's where you'd advocate. So, well, you're also kind of becoming an influencer.
The basis of it is that he is advocating for less attention and promotion of hunting, especially in exchange for monetary benefit.
Yeah.
Because
he's anti-system.
It's eroding away the access. Now, the thing is, I don't think we just mentioned 15 other things that contribute to the eroding away of access. Is it a factor? Is our podcast a factor of eroding away some access? Yeah, probably. Like, I'm sure it is. Like, if we brought attention to something and they're like, whoa, didn't know that, we should go do that, we're guilty as charged. Is it doing it alone? Like, in Matt's mind, like, outdoor celebrities have been the sole cause of loss of access, overpopulation of hunters in certain areas, Not correct, right? A factor, but for sure not the sole. Most of it is state-driven. To your point about Colorado, most of it's state-driven. It's the liberalization of seasons that has caused, to Jared's point earlier, the insulation for the guys who can insulate themselves, and that's what's caused the access issue. It had nothing to do with Lee and Tiffany saying this, or
I think
whoever hunting public doing this. Like, didn't have anything to do with any of that.
I think it's pretty simple, and we all are experiencing probably the same consequence, which is, overpopulation is the wrong word, but overpressure. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of people.
Which is the shitty part, because I do think historically there are less hunters than 20 years ago.
Yeah, but he's not wrong. I mean, there's more people occupying the space.
That's what I'm saying. They're not hunting the space. They're just occupying it.
Yeah. Fine.
Like it's being locked
both.
down.
I mean, I do think some of those Western states are getting more pressure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, than 20 years ago. Yes, probably. Mm-hmm. But and honestly, that's my biggest beef with Matt, and it's not anything against him. It's just everything he talks about is Western BLM and Western.
Who cares?
The 80% of the hunters are in the eastern states.
I mean,
it's a relevant conversation. Like, talking about how people are locking up stuff.
There's a lot of Western hunters, dude. I mean, that's
not. It's a fraction of the hunters. There's 10.
Yeah, by the numbers. There's
10 million whitetail deer hunters. There's 14 million total hunters.
I understand, but he's not talking about whitetail hunting.
That's what I'm saying. That's why the argument is
it's super relevant to the West.
But he's missing the entire mark, and there is a problem in the East.
Well, yeah, it's not his fight,
But he's acting like it is. He's not saying that I'm not talking about Iowa and Kansas and Pennsylvania.
I'm just trying to the whole thing with him and any of the other guys that kind of fall into that vein. To me, it's like somebody who's like an anti-prostitution advocate being like, the best way to get Johns to listen to me is to sell myself to these guys. And then
I got their attention.
Have you ever seen that South Park episode? He's like, all right, go ahead and drop your drawers. All right, here we go. Freeze! I'm a cop.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I don't.
But
know.
that's it. You're right, because that's the hard part now. Is like obviously he has to have a platform to have this voice, and I'm like, you're advocating against what you're turning out to be.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I personally.
What do you mean?
I mean, there's like a little Rage Against the Machine to it.
Yeah.
Like, Rage Against the Machine was willing to essentially play the game to a certain level.
Yep.
So maybe you're right.
Yeah, and I mean he needs it. Otherwise, how are we even hearing about him, or what is he doing, or like he? So
right, where he's misguided is he's channeling his or he's blaming basically content producers. He's saying, anybody who's, putting YouTube, anything that's promote hunting, he's like that's a big part of the problem. That's what's causing it. And I think Jeremy and I, at least I speak for myself, like I feel like you can't blame somebody for like talking about the thing that they love.
I blame the states.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's where I'm going. You know what I mean? It's like it's the state's responsibility to manage the resource, and it's like you're going to have an influx of supply and demand. Mm-hmm. Supply or demand, and maybe impacted by groups. Talking about hunting on YouTube, but it's the state's responsibility to manage it. Reduce the tag limit. Increase the whatever you have to do to limit the amount of technology you can use in it. I mean, that's so. We'll hear Matt out and say, yeah, we're experiencing a lot of the same issues. We don't think you're wrong, and other people are seeing that too. But I'm not going to get mad at the hunting public for talking about turkey hunting. I'm going to get mad at the state of Tennessee for not, limiting the tag limit or whatever it is. I'm just using an example,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also an interesting way to advocate because to me, you're advocating it's like those.
I will say that. Can I say this, Brandon?
Yeah, go ahead.
He is probably not wrong. He is like to use Meat Eater as the specific example because he's
him and his brother are estranged.
His brother's name Steve. He's Steve's brother, and so he's like was a part of that Meat Eater machine, and so beyond just the access thing, he feels like Meat Eater and probably some other brands are doing it for knowingly like having a negative impact on the access thing for financial benefit.
And I don't think they are doing it maliciously, though. They're not doing it thinking like, oh, I know we're having an impact on the access and I'm going to make money over it.
Well, it's an inherent thing. It's just they may know it or acknowledge it, but that is the business. Like you don't stop it.
I think it's anybody who is looking at people that are in the hunting industry and thinking you just did this for the money. I think that they are stupid because I think they don't understand how much time and effort it takes to do something like this, or even to like, I look at the businesses that Josh runs compared to like all the other industries that he could put the equivalent amount of work into and make 10 to 20 to 50x what he's making there. Like, I don't know. And maybe, I know that you guys y'all talk about like the philosophical parts of hunting a lot, which is one of the reasons that I listen to the pod. And I think it's really interesting because I think that you guys touch on some like deeper, more interesting things to think about that are higher level things. Is there anything else that's like bugging you guys that's come up that's different than whatever has been ailing you in the past? Is there anything new that's come up?
I think that's a good question.
Recent gripes.
Well, yeah, just anything that's changed that like I don't know if that's what I'm curious about, because I feel like there's a lot of information on a lot of these things already. There's a lot of conversations that have already happened in this vein, and I'm wondering what the next thing is.
Well,
and I feel like you guys are cutting edge of this.
I mean, I would say it, and it's selfish.
Cutting edge complainers.
It's selfish because I am one. I do not like the hate that non-resident landowners are taking from residents in states. And part of it ties directly into what we're talking about is that they see them coming in and gobbling up farms and taking away access. I also don't think that there's anybody that pours more money into enhancing the resource than the non-resident landowner does. If they're coming in and buying it for deer hunting, they're benefiting the people around them ultimately. I know I am. I know the lands around me are for sure probably better off than before I moved in. And I think that when the state residents look at that, I'm not opposed to some sort of limitation of non-residents that may be abusing the resource. And again, that's selfish because I'm saying this from a non-resident landowner side, but outfitters are for sure taking advantage of the resource. And I would say 90% of their clientele are going to be non-residents coming in to hunt with the outfitter, right?
I mean, you can see their side of it though, right? Like I don't
Whose
blame
side of it?
Resident landowners
Of why they're upset. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because they want land to be $2,500 an acre again, and it's never going to be that.
Well, I'm just saying you can understand the sense of entitlement to their home state.
It's their resource. It's their national resource. Like I am huge in favor of the residents of the state should decide the fate of the deer, turkey, whatever resident wildlife. But
dig into that a little bit more, because it's not generally the residents. It's a really small group of people that, and this is also another thing that I'm wondering, and I keep doing this with my fingers, which is
I like that.
weird.
I like it.
I apologize. Like,
thought you were playing a little violin there.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. I'm complaining about things that people are like, yeah. I wonder about like certain advocacy groups that have slowly started infiltrating in. And what I wonder is, do the people that are making decisions for game in certain states actually have hunter management? And specifically, I'm thinking about Colorado, like dropping wolves in multiple different times. Now this out-of-state thing. I just wonder, do you actually have, like, do you have the priorities straight? Do you have what, in my opinion, is this ecosystem that brings billions of dollars into the state, and this resource that brings in billions of dollars? And what is it? It's is number one priority, maintaining the health of the herd, so that then that herd can be managed by hunters. So then, and I'm kind of just fleshing this out. But in my opinion, when you do something like bring in the bowling ball of wolves.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, well, how many elk do the wolves? I had this conversation this week. Well, how many elk do the wolves kill? And you're like, no, it's not just about that. It's about the elk now constantly being under predation and having to be quiet and having to move, and the birth rates go down, and there's all this kind of stuff. And what I just wonder is, basically, are government departments being ceded to people that don't have the right priorities?
Yeah.
And that's,
yeah, it does. It sure seems.
I mean, I can tell you, at least from a wildlife side, because I was in it. Like when I graduated, I went into my master's degree in 2007 at a very prominent wildlife and fisheries university. And when I went into that, there were maybe 30 or 40% of us that were hunting and fishing people, and the rest were, quote, conservation biology. If I talk about that now, it's like 15% that are hunting and fishing, and the rest are conservation biology. I love wildlife. And I listen, those people are needed in certain cases, but when they get put in charge of game departments and stuff, it's not good. It's not good. And I'm not saying that they're doing anything malicious. Like, they're not anti-hunting infiltrations. They're just not knowledgeable of what hunting is in the culture and the people aspect. It's easy to manage wildlife populations. It's easy. It's the people shit that ruins everything. And if you can't relate to them and you're in charge of that stuff, that's why most state agencies are under fire and people hate them, is because the people running it, or the ones that are saying, hey, we know what we're doing, don't know what they're doing.
See, and this is why, and I've said this before, I think that if there's not more of a light that's shined on this, and there's not more people that are interested in from the hunting standpoint, like my son, who's young, I may say, why would this not be a career path that you would choose to go into this? it's going into like some sort of government work for some reason seems very like almost anti-Republican, which I know we're talking Republican, Democrat, like, but to me,
feels liberal.
There's kind of an ethos around hunting and around this, like, resourcefulness for yourself and all this stuff that is almost counter to the liberal side of things. And it's the reason that when you see people that are in charge that are of one mindset managing this massive group of people, that the majority of which have this other mindset, you see this friction and this combating going on. And I think it's going to get worse, is what I think.
Yeah,
because I think that the funnel of people who have the idea of hunting rights in mind, the people that are funneling into those organizations is probably less and less, like you had just said.
Yep. Well, I mean, like you talk about what's happening now, obviously everything that's going on with Doge and audits and firings and things like that. And I mean, I'm very conservative. I'm very Republican based, but one of those that's under fire is the USGS, so United States Geological Survey, but they have a wildlife and fisheries co-op that's usually married to a university. And there's a bunch of these cooperatives married to universities that do most of the important research for that state's wildlife and fisheries department. Like, they're not the DNR. They're the research arm working with the university side of things. Those are on the table to get completely cut. Like, all of them won't exist. If that happens, there will be states that will have no research around game species, what's happening, whether it's hunter movement, disease, harvest, reproductive rates, whatever. It won't exist. Be gone. No funding for it. No people to do it. No progress. No information. And I think there's a lack of information in a lot of this stuff now. There for sure will be a lack of information when they're gone.
That's an interesting one too, because I wonder if when we're talking about something like Doge, I wonder if we're thinking about this is like going to be forever, or are they going to go, we overcut? Because Elon's talked about this before. When you go into an organization, you have to overcut to then figure out where the need is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you leave too much meat on the bone, as it were, you never actually get to see where the need truly exists. So if he overcuts, and then they go, oh, okay, no, these are vital programs, vital research programs. But here's how we could modify these or change these to make them more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I'm kind of hoping happens.
But can you rehire those people?
I think it depends on the circumstance. Like what percentage of those people are professors and then students?
I mean, most of them are high-level PhD professor researchers.
Do we require that level of, like, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's who they are. Like, I mean, if you have a master's degree.
But it's the same to me, like, when I hear my friends who are teachers,
mm-hmm.
and I'm about to piss a whole lot of teachers off.
No, do it.
That are teaching, like, third grade. And oh yeah, by the way, shut me down if we need to stop. You just tell me when we can bounce.
No, I've got a little bit. It's my kid's birthday, so I do have to be home in a bit.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Happy birthday. Did you get him a crossbow?
No, he doesn't get one of those.
New bolts.
Right. Yeah, you turned 13. You became a man. No crossbow.
That's right. Vertical bow time, baby. Vertical bow. I like it. So, going back to the teacher thing, I found it very interesting that my friends were going and getting master's degrees to teach third graders.
They were forced to in a lot of states.
And I didn't understand that, because, like, it's not you just have to be smarter than a third grader to teach them. I understand that there's some teaching philosophy and things things like that, but, like, there's a parallel. Do we really need PhD level people that are working on this certain aspects of wildlife biology, or are there more efficient, effective ways to do that? Is there ways to use undergrad students to do the same thing and have them paying to be a part of it?
I think that there definitely should be more field type employees, whether it's students or whatever. But you need smart people, unfortunately. Like, and I say that because I was one of those guys where, like, when you got into like having to run the statistical analysis on that stuff, I didn't know how to do it.
But that potentially is a small group of smart people leading a larger army of people that would be necessary for XYZ. Or with the new technology that we're talking about with thermal drones and with thermal satellite imagery and all that kind of stuff. Like, and now when you incorporate AI,
I was gonna say AI is a huge factor in that,
where you literally throw up a satellite over a certain area and you say, track the elk movement over this 10,000 acre section, and let's watch what's happening. It can keep a bead on each of those individual thermal signals and watch exactly what's happening to show movement, to keep count, the whole deal. I mean, that kind of stuff could be unbelievable. And maybe that requires PhD level people that are basically creating.
You need software.
Whatever. Yeah, they're speaking the code into something like a ChatGPT to create the code. They're telling it what it wants to do, creating the code, plugging that in, and then maybe it takes 1,000 undergrad people to do whatever, if there's field stuff or whatever. But overall, what we're talking about is who isn't being involved and what are their intentions. And my concern is that my son will hunt German Shepherd-sized whitetail. And if he ever wants to kill an elk, that he's going to have to hunt high fence. That's my concern, is that by the time he's 30 years old, he draws a tag once every 10 years somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, it's effectively dead at that point. Or or it's European model and only the wealthiest landowners can do it.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but like that's a concern of mine. And again, I think that just goes back to who's in charge and what do they have, what are their intentions? Because if we let enough people be in charge, that the intention is we want wildlife to manage the wildlife and not hunters to manage the wildlife, or we're not concerned about. I mean, Colorado, like maybe they don't care, and they apparently don't. Like they're literally going to leave billions of dollars worth of tourism out. Like
they would rather just have some wolves out there and say that they did it. That's the governor and the lieutenant governor.
That makes me sad. And it's crazy. Not even because I invested in the state. Like I'm from Lakewood. I'm from just outside of Denver growing up, and like getting to be a part of all that was so cool. And like that's written into like my history. And I also feel like it makes a big group of people in the country like a robust and better people. And I want that for more folks. I don't want it for less folks. And I feel like that's where we're moving, unfortunately. But I don't really know what to do about it either.
I know. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Like whether you're in the West or you're in the East, whether you are looking to kill a 170-inch mature buck or you just want to kill a buck, that I think we're all in agreement that like this is not moving in the right direction. Right? We're sliding in a direction that is not going to be favorable in the long term. I don't necessarily know if any of us have answers, but I guarantee one of them isn't continuing to liberalize things. That is not the answer.
Seems like it.
And it sucks because, like, again, being conservative, like I'm for less regulation and small government, right? But in this case, I actually feel like we need more regulation, which is completely opposite of how I live most of my life. But without that next level regulation, we're slipping further and further away from what was like a heyday of hunting experiences, probably in the early to mid 2000s.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're right about that. I don't know anybody that disagrees that it's declined. Like the experience, like the accessibility of a quality whitetail hunting experience, I would say that's any hunting experience. It's just, it's not what it was 10 years ago.
You might be more efficient killers. People might be killing more things individually. We probably are because of the edges that we were talking about.
Some people are.
Yep, some people are. There are definitely people taking advantage of the advantages they're given. That's your right. It's legal to do so, but it's not sustainable. That's the thing. And unfortunately, there is a large mass of people, we addressed several of them earlier, that when deer hunting or elk hunting or grouse hunting or turkey hunting goes to shit, they'll just go golf or watch sports or do something. They don't care. It's just a thing that they do. It's in the repertoire of cycle. For the guys like us who are like, this is all I do, we'll be devastated. Which is why we have loud mouths about it now, because we see where it's going. It's like, listen, I don't care if you can't kill a deer on your 2-acre property. I don't care. That's not how it's supposed to be. If we keep doing this, it will ruin everything, and then eventually you'll just go do something else, and I'll be stuck with 250 acres of like me just staring into nothing.
Do you think that there should be quotas on having to kill does?
Some places.
Yeah.
Yep, some places.
Yeah. I can't remember what state it was, the statistic where it was like 46% of the deer killed were buck. And I think it was Ohio.
It was Ohio, yeah. Ohio's one, Michigan's one. Pennsylvania, surprisingly, we kill more does than we kill bucks, which is impressive, honestly.
But it has to be a large, like, don't you think that like a proper ratio is quite a bit bigger of a span? Or do you actually think like a 60-40 split is pretty good?
What do you mean?
In terms of what you should be killing? No. So we should be killing. Yeah, we should be killing two does every buck for sure.
Okay,
I mean
so that would be a 63-36.
Yeah.
But that's assuming it's out of balance. I mean, there are more does than there are bucks.
Yeah. No, like there are places like my Kentucky farm. I haven't and I will not kill a doe for the foreseeable future. There aren't a bunch of deer. There are hardly any deer, honestly. And so, like, okay. I mean, could I shoot a doe and is it going to hurt the population? No, but like I can sustain a lot more deer in that area, and yeah, they're just not there right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like just from my perspective at my farm, I look around and I go, I need to kill a lot more doe next year.
Yeah,
like I need to kill a lot more doe because it seems like there's kind of a consensus of if you're seeing this many doe and not a lot of bucks, that might be part of the problem.
Well, and it's easy. I mean, for a long time, I would recommend even more. Like I had some places I would say you need to kill 75 does this year and you're going to kill 10 bucks. And like, as soon as and most wouldn't kill 75, right? That's a sticker shock. But let's say they killed 40, it would sponge effect the surrounding ones right in if your habitat's good enough. That's the only reason you have that many deer. It's either they can't get killed because you're in urban areas or non-hunting areas, or you have some of the best habitat. So if you remove them, the new ones will take right back into it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes sense. Gents, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, man. As always, appreciate it. There's lots of big topics. At some point, maybe offline, we'll talk about the agricultural effects on deer reproduction. That's the next big one. I'm telling you right now. That's the next big one.
Ooh, that like chemicals and stuff like that, you mean?
Spot on.
Dude, that'll be really interesting.
I'm digging on some more research there. It exists. I need to get RFK Jr. on.
Yeah, that's another edge that I feel like you guys have is this little bit of like a science. There's a little bit of science on your podcast that's interesting with Jeremy, with your experience.
Yeah, I know I'm not that guy like anymore. I've been out of the game for too long, but I know enough of those people that it's cool to reach out and be like, hey, like what, do you know anyone that's even talked about this? And they'll send me a paper and it's like, why has nobody seen this paper? And it's constant in research. Like it never just reaches.
Rednecks don't read papers.
They don't care. No. But it's cool. There's cool stuff. And it is. I mean, even my eyes, like I roll back in my head on it. But like around the ag side, there's definitive research that says that agricultural chemicals are mutating the reproductive organs of fawns. Well, if those deer survived to reproductive age and they had mutated reproductive organs, you think their fertility is effective? No. Not so
Very
much.
Interesting. Call Robert Kennedy Jr.
I'm going to get him in a fermented owl urine.
Oh my God, that killed Tony episode.
Oh, I was dead. Jared and I were dying on that. Contrary to popular belief, it doesn't taste very good.
Not as good as it looks.
Well, listen, dude, we appreciate it as always, man. A fun conversation, and obviously offline. Hit us up about your farm, dude. Anytime we can help, and it's just opinions.
You guys got me on the right path. I think you got me on the right path. And there was just a couple other questions that I had to make sure that I wasn't like just you were like, yeah, don't listen to that guy. That's no good. So yeah.
They all have good information. It's just, is it applicable to you?
Just text us. If you're wanting to take on a project, we're happy to weigh in.
Yep.
I'm gonna call Bobby Kendall.
There you go.
Do you have his number?
No, I'll text you about it if you got it.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah, Bobby's good.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, if you guys ever come down to Nashville, well, you should. You should come down to Nashville.
I was there not long ago. I was at NWTF.
Okay, yeah, and I know that there's a bunch of shows and stuff like that I think now, like I'm plugging back in a little bit, but we've got there's this kick-ass shop just north of town.
Cool.
Everybody's plugged into their own home shops, but like it'd be awesome. Come shoot some bows.
Would love to, man. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, brother.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Better Backstrap.
Well, one thing that's undeniable, man, is you and I both like to eat. And so we're going to be partnering with the Better Backstrap this year to have the best seasonings possible for our meat this summer.
Yeah. Well, dude, when it comes to venison, it's like you've heard me talk about before. It's like, what does the preparation for all this look like and stuff? And it's like, I really want to make a point of eating more venison moving forward. And some of the Better Backstrap mixtures have made it super easy.
Yeah. And so we've got kind of 3 core mixtures. You've got your original Better Backstrap, which is for that grilling of your backstrap or tenderloins or anything like that. You've got your classic taco mix.
Always can't go wrong with tacos.
Can't go wrong with that. And then you've got your standard SPG in the orange can.
Well, SPG and down the hatch.
There you go. So right now, if you go to betterbackstrap.com, you can use the code HUNTR15, get 15% off any of your orders on the seasonings, and there'll probably be more coming out here throughout the year.
Get yourself a Better Backstrap.
And awesome.
Pretty cool.
I like Brandon.
Yeah, he's cool.
We're all on the same wavelength of like how a podcast should run.
We should go to Tennessee at some point.
Yeah,
be fun. I'd like to see that new shop.
That's a quick trip. I was I guess I drove straight through. I stayed in Elizabethtown when I went to Tennessee. So I drove to Kentucky, stayed overnight, and then drove 2 hours into Nashville the next day, spent the day, and then drove home. And I mean, it was a long trip, but like it was fun.
Yeah. How far is it down there?
About 7 hours.
Yeah, that's pretty doable.
Yeah, so I drove 5 hours. I left work at 3:00, drove to Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is about 5 hours.
I bet Corey's looking for an excuse to go down there.
Sure. NWTF is fun, even like as a not so turkey hunter. Like it's a cool atmosphere.
It's a big show.
Yeah, it's a huge show. A lot of people there, and yeah, it's fun. But yeah, I don't know what else will be in Nashville, but that'd be cool to go down, hang out. Yeah, lots of cool. I like just Brandon's thought process, and I mean, if you've ever seen his stuff, it's that same way. It's a lot of
introspective.
Let's provoke thoughts. Whether opinions aside, like let's just talk about it. What do you think? Like, what is it? And so clearly, that's our style. If we get our brains rolling, so anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to episode 244 of Brandon McDonald. I'm going to go. It's Carter's 13th birthday. I have a teenager. You believe that shit?
Oh, boy.
That's wild. It's hard to fathom that. Yeah, it's hard to fathom.
I remember 13.
I've got people, though, like my age having kids, which is also crazy. I'm like, I have a 13-year-old. Did I like.
Why? Because they're old?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like I'm 40 and they're like having babies. Well, it's the generation. That's what I'm saying. Man. It's the generational thing. Like,
we'll pop them out as long as we can.
Wow. So, yeah, I have a 13-year-old. He's sick at home, though, but we got him dinner and we're going to still celebrate. So,
cool. Happy birthday, Carter.
Yep. And, but yeah, we appreciate everyone listening to this week's podcast, and we will catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me